Hello and welcome to Jurassic Reviews. On this episode, we'll be taking a look at another figure from X+. That figure is the Yuji Sakai Godzilla 1995, the standard version. Before we begin, here's a look at the box that it comes in. This figure stands right around 12 inches tall, and is 20 inches long from head to tail, so this figure is pretty much a true 30 centimeter figure, when past Sakai figures have been on the shorter side, a result of the transition to vinyl. I'll have a comparison with other Sakai Godzilla figures later in the video. First, let's start with the sculpt. I'm gonna be honest about this one. I was never quite sold on this one from the pictures online. Something about the head just looked off to me. This is also part of the reason I decided to go standard instead of getting the Rick, as I didn't want to spend even more money on a figure I wasn't completely sure on. But like many X+ figures, they look way better in person. This figure doesn't disappoint at all. Let's start with the head, which was my cause for concern. I think it looks pretty spot on for the 95 suit. This is definitely the most movie accurate 95 I have in my collection. Everything is wonderfully executed here. And while I am normally a big fan of the closed mouth figures, I really like the open mouth one on this. The teeth and everything look great. That said, I wouldn't be surprised if we get a closed mouth version of this later on. The rest of the figure looks great as well. The tree bark-like skin on the body all looks good, and is highlighted pretty nicely by the paint, which I'll touch on here soon. The chest area is more scaly looking, and so is the neck. Besides this, the only change in texture is underneath the tail, which is more smooth large scales. And here's a quick look at the dorsal plates, which have a bumpy texture in the middle, but smoothen out around the edges of each. Now let's move on to the paint. Like I said before, this is the standard version. The Rick version of this actually has a translucent quality to the burning parts, instead of them being just painted on. Do I regret passing on the Rick? A little bit, but this still looks great to me. I've seen some people comment that the paint on this looks like a Bandai Creations burning Godzilla, and I have to disagree. I think this looks a lot better. The combination of yellow, red, and orange really pop, as they contrast nicely with the really dark charcoal gray covering the rest of the body. For the most part, it's just large spots for this paint application, but there's also a few veins around the neck. The fingernails and toenails are painted a yellowish color, with some black in there as well. Moving to the dorsal plates, the inner parts are painted dark gray like the rest of the body, but the outer parts transition to a little bit of yellow and then bright orange, which look awesome. This paint stops when you arrive at the tail, which changes to a lighter gray. This is more movie accurate than the Rick version, which has these plates painted orange. Moving to the head, you'll find it has white teeth and dark red gums. There's also some black in there as well, that's mixed in with the mouth and tongue. Its eyes are really striking, and can look a little crazy from certain angles. They are painted yellow, and there's also some orange and black. There's even little tiny orange veins. A pretty cool detail. So overall, I'm pretty satisfied with the paint. It would be cool to have the translucent version, but there's always a chance they'll release a closed mouth version at some point, and maybe they'll have that quality to it. And I always have my gigantic 95. Before I give my rating for this figure, here's a comparison with other figures. Here it is with the Sakai Godzilla 2001. I actually forgot to mention that this Sakai 95 is one of the few Sakai figures that doesn't have a tail stand. Here it is with the Sakai Godzilla 1991. Here it is with the Sakai Godzilla 2002, my current favorite Sakai figure. Here it is with Destroya. They look good together, but they are obviously not the same scale. Here it is with Godzilla 2014, one of the larger 30cm Godzillas. And finally, here it is with the gigantic burning Godzilla 1995. For a rating out of 10, I give this one a 9. The sculpt is awesome, and I really like the open mouth on this one. If there's a closed mouth version, I am definitely pairing it with this. The paint is good, despite being the standard version, and I do like that it has a bit more movie accuracy than the Rick version. I don't think this is among my potential figures of the year, but it is a great addition to my collection. If you're a fan of burning Godzilla figures, this is a cool one to have. I recommend it. And that does it for the X Plus Yuji Sakai Godzilla 1995 standard version. If you enjoyed this review, be sure to subscribe. Sorry for the lack of videos lately. I've been a bit overwhelmed with both work and class, but I'll try my best to have more videos out soon. Thanks for watching and see you next time.